Lunch today at Lyons Hill Farm is a barbecued 35-day aged sirloin steak from our very special rare breed White Park, and of course homemade chips. Just giving these the first of their 3 cooks.
So the barbecue is perfect, there is no smoke, all the charcoal is white, and we're ready to put the finest steaks you and I will ever eat. A little bit of oil just to make sure, rub that in, to make sure it doesn't stick to the griddle bars. And
again.
okay.
So Dad, I know you've pulled something very special out the freezer. There you go. Why don't you talk us through it and tell us what it is?
I certainly have. Well, as we both know, these are steaks from the finest beef that Britain can produce, which is from the ancient and rare breed, the White Park cattle. The White Park steer in this case, a lovely steer, beautifully marbled beef, and these are the sirloins, and the sirloin of course was made famous by James the First 400 years ago, who knighted a loin of beef because he'd never eaten finer beef before, and he recognised the incredible eating qualities of the White Park steer. So we're now going to cook these, and James is cooking them on their backs to start with, to make sure that the outer fat of the sirloin is nicely barbecued before we actually cook the steak itself.
So Dad, some people know that White Park is a rare breed of cattle, but not many people will know that it's Britain's most ancient breed. Tell us a little bit about the history of this fine beef.
Well, of course cattle come from somewhere in the very, very distant past, and this breed of animal, the White Park, is very closely related to the now extinct ancient and prehistoric aurochs, whilst a lot of the traditional breeds brought over by the Celts from Central Europe were not related to the same animal. So this is very special. Look at that, how marvellous is that? Perfect.
Ready to go?
Yeah, now we can put them on their sides, I think. Excellent. So being an ancient breed, as opposed to a modern commercial breed, White Park beef is very slow growing, and that is the reason why it's rare. It's rare because it's uncommercial to grow. Our beef takes up to 42, even sometimes 48 months to finish. Very slow growth before they then start to put the fat on, which is so crucial to both the flavour and the ability to be able to hang beef correctly. But during this time what happens is that the fat becomes intramuscular, and it creates what is otherwise known as marbling. Fast grown beef cannot produce that marbling unless it is force fed wrongly and artificially with grain. Our beef is completely grass fed, but you can achieve heavy marbling with grain fed beef in quick time, but that's not natural. Not only is it not natural, it's not what a herbivore is supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be eating grass and not grain, but also the beef itself is not good for you. The cholesterols are bad cholesterols and not good cholesterols, as grass-fed beef produces.
So Dad, what do you reckon if I was to buy you a box of White Park beef for Father's Day?
I can think of no finer thing. I might change from a beer to a good bottle of wine, which I might sort of stretch my hands into the cellar. But there's no finer gift on Father's Day than a great piece of beef and a good bottle of wine. I'm salivating at the thought of eating this.
How are the chips?
The chips, I was just going to say, I know the chips are nearly ready. They're ready for their third immersion in the hot oil at the highest temperature. So thrice cooked chips we've got with our beautifully cooked steak.
And how do you like your steak?
Very good question. To get the optimum flavour from a steak, it should be cooked medium rare. You need the intramuscular fats, the marbling, should start to melt in the steak. And it's the release of those fats within the steak at the medium rare point where the optimum flavour of the steak is achieved. Everybody will have their own preferences, that's fine, but organoleptically, from a taste point of view, those fats have just got to start melting at the medium rare point.
What do you reckon, Dad? How's that looking?
I think that is looking absolutely magnificent.
Same. Dad, if this were Father's Day, would you be happy with your lunch?
I'm just itching to get on with it. We've got everything ready. Perfectly cooked chips, perfectly cooked steak, and the finest beef you can get. That is perfectly cooked. It is medium rare, and beautifully the fat is very nicely crisped up on the outside. And we're using an old-fashioned steak knife to make sure that we can cut a wafer thin slice on the outside of what is a melt-in-the-mouth steak.